everybody, welcome to this week's edition of setting up a worm farm. This is a 3-system tiered tray. It's the Worm Cafe. I actually have 2 of these, but I'm only going to be setting up one today. I haven't used these ones for a while, so I thought I'll just set one of these up. A lot of people are wanting to start a worm farm but not really sort of sure how to set one up, so it's pretty easy and we'll just run through the steps. So step 1, get yourself a worm farm. There's different varieties out there on the market. You can have this Worm Cafe, you can have the can of worms, which is just the round one, you can have a hungry bin, you can have some totes that people use, but it's very important, if you are using a tote, is to make sure it's an actual dark coloured one, nothing light or white or anything like that, because it just will let too much light in, and the worms don't like light, they like complete darkness. So the second most important thing to consider is location, location, location. Where are you going to put your worm farm? So you don't want to have this out in the direct sunlight, especially in summertime, because these bins will just get way too hot and the worms will be really stressed and might even die. So because these would absorb a lot of heat. So this will be good in the winter time if you're having a really cold winter. You could have these out sort of in the sun during the day and enough for them to sort of warm up to keep them a bit warmer overnight. But you can also, wherever you do place it, you can actually put like a blanket over it or a tarp or something just to keep the weather off of them. Ideally, you would like to have these sort of close to your back door, so it's not too far away for you to walk outside and put all your food scraps in. Some people can have compost bins and worm farms too far away from their back door. So my hungry bin is just right near my back door there, so it's really convenient just to walk outside and pop in a few food scraps. Okay, so because it's winter here, I just do want to protect this one a little bit more from the outside elements. So I'm just going to be putting this in the corner of my patio here, and I have these blinds here that will protect them from the rain and the wind. But also this one here, I can actually roll it up because the sun comes over in the afternoon and it'll be just enough to warm this up before the evening, so it'll get that last little bit of warmth throughout the afternoon. So, and then I can just roll it back down again at night time. So this is where I've decided I'm going to set up my bin this time. Here I've got just a bucket of shredded paper. So what I'm going to be doing first of all is the very lowest tray. I've taken all the other trays off. I'm just going to pop some of this down in the bottom there, because quite often you actually get worms that just come all the way down the bottom. They're a little bit of explorers, and then sometimes they get down the bottom and they kind of hang around down there. So I can just put a little bit of that down there for a bit of bedding. And if they don't sort of come out of there, at least they've got something to eat. Just a little bit, don't have to put too much in there. So you'll probably find that when you do buy your worm farm, it may come with one of these, which is a worm farm bedding block. And basically you just expand that in water and put that into your worm farm as their bedding. But because I have a lot of shredded paper I got for free, I'm just going to use that, and along with some mushroom compost. Upside down. The mushroom compost. That makes excellent bedding, so I'm going to be mixing that together. And I also do have a little bit of organic cow manure. I was just going to mix just a little bit of that in there as well. So first of all, we'll just put on one of the trays. This will just go on the top or the bottom here, and then I'll pop the second tray on. So I'll just go ahead and I'll just run through what I'm going to be putting in here. So what I have here is some shredded paper. So I'm just going to mix loosen that up in there a little bit. So the next step is I'm going to be putting in a little bit of mushroom compost. So next I'm just going to be putting in a little bit of cow manure, not a great deal. Just mix that in with the mushroom compost. So I'll just pop that bucket there, don't catch anything dripping out. Very important to use rainwater in your worm farms, because if you're using tap water it has a lot of chlorine in it, and that will sort of kill off the little cocoons, and the worms don't like it. You don't really want to use chemicals in your worm farm. So that's just running out down the bottom there. Yeah, that normally has a tap on it, but I haven't got the tap on it at the moment, so that's no problem. And once that goes through, I'll just run it through again. Yeah, so it's very important. If you don't have rainwater, what you can do is just fill up big totes of tap water, and you can just let that sit out for a day or two, and the chlorine will dissipate from that, and then that'll be safe to sort of wet through your worm farm, or if you need to sort of wet your worm farm through summer a little bit more often. So now your worm farm is ready to have worms put in it. Because I have so many free-ranging worms around my garden and in my compost bins, I'm actually going to just try and scoop out some from both areas. So ideally you can start your bin off with about 500 worms. That's sort of the bare minimum to start your worm farm. If generally about 1,000 worms is plenty to start off in a single tray. I will eventually just set this second tray up exactly like I've done with the first, and I'll probably have 1,000 worms in this one and 1,000 worms in this one. But that's to get it really cranking and get those castings and compost much quicker. 1,000 for one tray would be perfect, and yeah, they'll soon start munching through all your scraps and everything like that. So when you do put your food scraps in the worm farms, you want to make sure it's all chopped up really small, because as the food's breaking down, it has this creates this dead organic matter around it as decomposition, and that's what the worms are actually feeding from. So if you stick whole foods in there, like big pieces of carrot or potatoes, whole potatoes and stuff, it's just going to take a lot longer for that to actually break down. So once you've set up your worm bin and you've put your worms in, just let them settle for a day or two before you do start feeding them. They just want to get used to their new little habitat there. So a couple of days, and then you can start feeding them small amounts of food. You don't want to sort of be throwing like a great big bowl of scraps into here straight up. So to feed your worms, just try and use scraps of fruit and vegetables. Don't put things like garlic and chili and any dairy products in there, no meats or anything, because that'll just attract vermin and cockroaches into your bin, and we don't want to be competing with those, and those foods will just actually go off, so makes your bin quite smelly. So ideally, to make sure you have enough moisture in your worm farm, is you just pick up a bit of a handful, just give it a squeeze. 1 or 2 drips come out, that's fine. If it's wringing wet and there's lots of liquid coming out, it's a little too wet, so then you can add a little bit more mushroom compost or some more shredded paper or newspaper or something. You might at times find that you might have some ants in your worm bin. That actually means that your bin is too dry, so ants like a dry environment, so they don't like it when it's wet. So if that's the case, obviously you just water down your worm farm a little bit more and those ants should disappear. We'd like to put some sort of cover over the top of them. We've got like an old towel or something, an old cotton towel. You can use that, or you can just use some newspaper, which I'll pop that on there and I'll just give it a little bit of a dampen down. And that should keep them nice and warm and nice and dark in there. Just tip this all the way through again. Let that soak through. And we'll pop the lid back on. Happy days. Yeah, so with the second tray, so we've got some shredded paper in the bottom tray. I've just put some shredded paper on the second tray as well. And then the top tray with the bedding and the worms will go on the top one. So just pop that back on top. Okay. Mind you though, once these get quite full, they do get quite heavy, so it's not something like you can just lift up and move around. You'll probably have to separate it and move it to another part of the garden if you want to change the location of it. There we have it. And my new worm farm all set up there, ready to make some more worm castings. Hopefully it's helped some of you viewers who've always wanted to set up your own worm farm but weren't quite sure how to do it. You can see how easy it was, only a few simple steps. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It would really help my channel out, and consider subscribing as well. That would be awesome. Until the next video, we'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye.